The snow fell like blades of ice on that December dawn. Adrian Whitmore stepped onto the frozen sidewalk in front of his corporate building and felt the cutting wind pierce his Italian wool coat. It was almost 3 in the morning. He had just left a meeting that decided the fate of thousands of jobs. Profit above all else. It had always been that way. Then he heard it. A muffled cry coming from the side alley. Weak. Desperate. Adrian hesitated. It was not his problem. It never was. In 42 years of life, he had learned that emotional involvement was a sign of weakness. But something in that sound made him stop. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe the loneliness he never admitted to feeling. He turned and walked toward the dark alley. What he saw paralyzed him. A woman was kneeling in the dirty snow, holding a child in her arms. The girl was no more than 5 years old, her lips purple, her eyes half closed. The woman wore a worn cleaning uniform, without a coat. Her body shook violently. "Please," her voice was a thread. "Please, sir, save my daughter first." Adrian was left speechless. The woman was not asking for help for herself. She was freezing, clearly in an advanced state of hypothermia, but she only thought about the child. "I work in your building," she whispered, recognizing him through the fog of consciousness. "Third shift. Cleaning. My name is Isabel." He knelt instinctively. The girl was worse than the mother. She was breathing with difficulty, a frightening wheeze coming from her small chest. Adrian knew nothing about children, but he knew how to recognize someone on the brink of death. "What happened?" he asked, taking off his own coat and covering the girl. "Eviction," Isabel tried to explain, each word an immense effort. "I had nowhere to go. She has asthma. The cold. Please, Mr. Whitmore, save my Clara first. I don't matter. She is everything." At that moment, something broke inside Adrian. He never had children. Never wanted them. Relationships were bad investments, he used to say. But seeing that mother willing to die so her daughter could live, he felt something he had not felt in decades. Shame. Shame of his indifference. Of his millions spent on cars he never drove. Of his empty penthouse that looked more like a mausoleum of glass and steel. He grabbed his phone and called his driver. Then the private hospital where he held shares. He gave precise orders. Private room. Best team. Cost did not matter. Then he did something that surprised even himself. He took off his suit jacket and covered Isabel. He carefully picked Clara up in his arms. The girl weighed almost nothing. He could feel every rib through the thin little dress. What kind of world was this where a child was cold like that? A world he helped build, he realized in horror. His cost-cutting policies had eliminated benefits for outsourced employees. People like Isabel. She probably earned less in a month than he spent on a bottle of wine. The car arrived within minutes. Adrian settled mother and daughter in the back seat and sat beside them. Isabel was losing consciousness. "Stay awake," he said, holding her icy hand. "You will see your daughter get better. I promise." Why was he making that promise? He never promised anything to anyone. Promises were responsibilities. Responsibilities were traps. But when Isabel opened her eyes and looked at him with gratitude mixed with fear, Adrian knew there was no turning back. Something had changed that dawn. He did not yet know what it was, but he felt the weight of that moment like he had never felt anything before. At the hospital, doctors and nurses moved like a well-trained army. Clara was immediately taken to the emergency room. Isabel resisted, trying to follow her, but she was too weak. "She will be fine," a doctor with tired eyes assured. "But you also need urgent care." "No," Isabel cried. "I don't have money. I can't pay." "I'll pay," Adrian interrupted. The words came out before he could think. Everything. No discussion. The doctor looked at him with surprise, then nodded and took Isabel to another room. Adrian was left alone in the silent corridor, smelling of disinfectant and fear. He looked at his own hands. They were still shaking. It was not from the cold. For the first time in decades, Adrian Whitmore did not know what to do. There was no spreadsheet for this. There was no corporate strategy. Just a woman and a child who depended on him. And he had no idea how he had ended up there. If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Leave in the comments what you think so far and which city or country you are watching from. Your participation makes all the difference. Adrian sat down on a hard plastic chair and waited. For the first time in his life, he waited for something money could not buy. The answer to whether Clara would survive. 3 hours later, the doctor finally appeared. Her face was tired, but there was a faint smile on her lips. "Clara will recover," she said. It was very close. 15 more minutes on the street and we would have lost her. The hypothermia combined with a severe asthma attack, it was critical. Adrian felt his shoulders relax. He hadn't realized he was tense until that moment. And Isabel? Also stable. Severe malnutrition, hypothermia, extreme exhaustion. She was sacrificing her own food to feed her daughter. The doctor paused. "Mr. Whitmore, those two need follow-up care. This is not just one night in the hospital. It's long-term treatment, expensive medications, proper nutrition." "Do everything that's necessary," Adrian replied without hesitation. The doctor studied him with curiosity. "Are you related to them?" The question caught him off guard. "No. I found them on the street." "I see." Her tone was neutral, but Adrian felt the implicit judgment. Rich man saving poor people. Convenient charity. Good publicity. But it wasn't that. At least not this time. Adrian couldn't explain what it was, but he knew it had nothing to do with public image. When he was finally allowed to see Isabel, she was awake, connected to IVs and monitors. Her eyes filled with tears when she saw him. "Clara," was her first word. "She's alive. She's going to be fine." Isabel broke down into sobs. Adrian stayed there, uncomfortable, not knowing what to do with so much raw emotion. In his world, feelings were kept in locked drawers. Here, they overflowed like floods. "Thank you," she whispered through tears. "Thank you for saving my daughter first. I don't matter, but she deserves a better life." "You both matter," Adrian heard himself say. The words sounded strange in his own voice. Isabel wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "You don't know me, Mr. Whitmore. I'm just one more person. I've worked in your building for 2 years. 3rd shift. We've never seen each other before." That hit Adrian like a punch. 2 years. This woman cleaned the offices where he made million-dollar decisions, and he had never noticed her existence. "Tell me what happened," he asked, pulling up a chair. Isabel hesitated, but something in his eyes made her trust him. "My husband died 3 years ago. Work accident. No compensation because it was informal. Then it was just me and Clara. I got the cleaning job, but the salary barely covered the rent. When Clara had her first asthma attack, I had to choose between medicine and food." Adrian felt a tightness in his chest. He had never had to choose between anything. He had everything. Always had. "I fell behind on the rent. The landlord was patient at first, but then, he evicted us yesterday afternoon. Threw our things out onto the street. I tried shelters, but they were full. I thought about asking for help, but I have no one. My family disowned me when I married poor." "And the building where you work? There's no social assistance." Isabel gave a bitter smile. "The outsourced company that hired me cut all benefits last year. They said it was to reduce costs. Orders from headquarters." Adrian went pale. He knew exactly which order she was talking about. He had signed that memorandum. 15% reduction in operational expenses. Maximum efficiency. Record quarterly profit. He had never thought about the faces behind the numbers. "I signed that," he admitted, his voice coming out hoarse. "That order came from me." Isabel blinked, confused. Then she understood. Her face showed no anger. It showed resignation. As if she already knew that this was how the world worked. "You were doing your job," she said softly. "Businessmen think about profits. That's how it is. It shouldn't be." The silence between them was heavy. A nurse entered and interrupted the moment. "Mr. Whitmore, there's a man at reception saying he's the girl's uncle. He wants authorization to visit her." Isabel immediately tensed. "Rodrigo. You have a brother?" Adrian asked. "Half-brother. I haven't spoken to him in years. He never cared about Clara. Why would he come now? Adrian had a bad feeling. Leave it to me. He went down to reception and found a man around 35 years old, wearing expensive clothes with questionable taste. Rodrigo had the calculating eyes of someone who measured everything in terms of personal advantage. "Where is my niece?" he demanded when he saw Adrian. "Who are you?" "Rodrigo Mendez. Clara's uncle. I have the right to see her." "Right." Adrian crossed his arms. "Isabel said you never showed up before." Rodrigo shrugged. "I fought with my sister. But blood is blood. I heard she's hospitalized. I want to help." Lie. Adrian recognized a lie. He spent half his life in negotiation rooms detecting bluffs. How did you know she was here? News travels. Small city. Another sign of a lie. They were in a metropolis of millions. Adrian studied the man. Rodrigo looked away. Guilt. Or greed. Probably both. "You're not going to see Clara today," Adrian decided. "She's in critical recovery. No visitors. You can't stop me. I'm family. I pay this hospital's bills. I can." Rodrigo narrowed his eyes. "Ah, I see. The rich philanthropist playing savior. How long until you get tired and abandon them? A week? 2? The words hurt more than Adrian expected, because there was truth in them. He had a history of starting projects and abandoning them. His life was a cemetery of good intentions. But looking at Rodrigo, at his transparent falseness, Adrian made a decision. "I won't abandon them. And you will not go near that child while I'm alive." Rodrigo laughed with contempt. "We'll see how long your charity lasts." He left, slamming the door. Adrian returned to Isabel's room, but didn't mention the visit. She already had enough worries. And he had just made a promise he didn't know if he could keep. Protecting two people who, until that morning, had been invisible to him. Adrian spent the night at the hospital. Not at home. Not in the empty penthouse overlooking the city. There, on an uncomfortable chair between Isabel's and Clara's rooms. When the sun rose, he made calls. First to his personal lawyer. "I need information about temporary custody of a minor," he said bluntly. There was silence on the other end. "Mr. Whitmore, do you have a child I'm unaware of?" "No. But I need to protect a child. Legally." The lawyer hesitated. "This is complex. We need context, documentation, judicial approval. And if there are living relatives, they have priority." Adrian thought of Rodrigo. "And if those relatives are unfit? We would need to prove that. It's not simple." "Make it happen. I'll pay whatever it takes." The second call was to his own company's human resources department. "I want the contracts of all outsourced companies that provide services for us," he ordered. "And I want a full audit of the working conditions of those employees." His assistant was visibly confused. "Sir, this will generate significant costs. And possibly expose problems that I created," Adrian finished. "I know. Do it anyway." During the morning, Clara woke up. Adrian was in the hallway when the nurse came to get him. "She's asking for her mother, but she also asked for the kind man who carried her. She wants to see you." Adrian had never been called kind in his life. Ruthless, yes. Efficient, certainly. But kind? He entered the room slowly. Clara was sitting on the bed, too small among the white sheets. Her big eyes watched him with curiosity mixed with shyness. "Hi," he said, not knowing how to talk to children. "You saved me and Mommy," Clara said in a tiny voice. "The nurse told me. Your mother is the one who asked me to save you first. She is very brave. Mommy always puts me first." Clara played with her fingers. "She doesn't eat so I can eat. She thinks I don't see it, but I see it." Adrian sat in the chair beside the bed, feeling the weight of those words. "You're very smart. Mommy says I have to study a lot. She says education is the only thing no one can take away from us. Your mother is right." Clara looked out the window. "Are we going to have to go back to the street when we leave here?" The question was innocent, but it broke Adrian's heart. A 5-year-old should not know the fear of having nowhere to sleep. No, he replied. And this time, it was not an empty promise. It was a decision. You're going to have a safe place. I promise. In the days that followed, Adrian turned promise into action. He rented a small but decent apartment in a safe neighborhood, furnished it completely, filled the refrigerator, paid 6 months in advance. He hired a private investigator to gather information about Rodrigo. What he discovered confirmed his worst fears. The man had gambling debts, labor lawsuits, and more concerning, an ex-wife with a restraining order against him. But there was a problem. Isabel had a scheduled medical discharge, but she needed a job. The apartment was temporary if there was no income. And Adrian knew that simply giving money would hurt her pride. He had already noticed that. That was when he had an idea. He called his executive assistant, Beatriz, a sharp 50-year-old woman who had been with him for 15 years. I need someone trustworthy to manage my home, he said. Someone to live on site, handle maintenance, manage suppliers. Fair salary, full benefits, housing included. Beatriz raised an eyebrow. You never wanted anyone living in your penthouse before. You valued privacy. Things change. Do you have someone in mind for the position? Maybe. But it needs to look like a real selection process. Not disguised charity. Beatriz smiled. It was the smile of someone who knew Adrian better than he knew himself. Perfectly understood. When he presented the proposal to Isabel, she was leaving the hospital. Still too thin, but alive. Clara was holding her hand tightly. It's a real job, Adrian explained. With a formal contract, social security, health insurance. You and Clara would have a private room in the penthouse. Clara could study at a nearby school. A good school. Isabel looked at him with suspicion. Why are you doing this? Because I need someone trustworthy. And because you proved to be the most trustworthy person I've ever known. You put your daughter first even when you were dying. Any mother would do that. Not all of them. Adrian thought of his own mother, who had abandoned him at a boarding school at 6 years old because children interfered with her acting career. Isabel bit her lip. I don't want charity. It's not. It's work. Hard work, actually. My house is big. There will be a lot to do. And I'm a difficult boss. Clara tugged at her mother's sleeve. Mommy, he said, good school. With a library. Isabel looked at her daughter. Adrian saw the exact moment when pride lost to maternal love. 3-month trial period, she negotiated. If it doesn't work out, I leave with no hard feelings. Deal. They shook hands. Hers were still trembling slightly. That night, Adrian helped them move. There wasn't much to carry. Some clothes recovered from the eviction. Clara's old toys. A worn photo album. When Clara saw the room that would be hers, with a new bed and stuffed animals Adrian had bought somewhat awkwardly, she hugged his legs tightly. Thank you, Uncle Adrian. Uncle. Not Mr. Whitmore. Not CEO. Uncle. Adrian felt something strange in his chest. Something warm and frightening. Something like belonging. Isabel appeared at the doorway, eyes filled with tears. I'll never be able to thank you enough. You don't need to thank me. You just need to stay. And let Clara be a child. But Adrian knew the war was only beginning. Because Rodrigo would not give up. Men like him never did when money was involved. And Adrian was absolutely certain that Rodrigo would return. The only question was when. Rodrigo returned 3 weeks later. But not alone. Adrian was in his office when Beatriz rushed in, her face tense. We have a problem. Clara's uncle has filed for custody. He claims his sister is incapable of taking care of the girl and that you are exercising undue influence. Adrian felt his blood run cold. He can't do that. He can. And he did. There's a hearing scheduled for 5 days from now. The judge is known for favoring blood ties. That night, Adrian barely slept. Isabel cried in her room, trying to muffle her sobs so Clara wouldn't hear. But the girl heard. Children always do. In the morning, Clara appeared in the living room where Adrian was having breakfast, her eyes swollen. Uncle Adrian, Is the bad man going to take me away from Mommy? Adrian knelt in front of her. I'll do everything I can to stop that. Promise. He looked into those trusting eyes. I promise. The following days were war. Adrian mobilized the best lawyers. He gathered evidence about Rodrigo, debts, lawsuits, the violent history. But the lawyer on the other side was clever. My client acknowledges past mistakes, he argued during the preliminary hearing. But he has reformed. He now has stable employment. And blood is blood. A child needs a real family, not rich strangers playing at charity. The judge, a woman with a severe gaze named Dr. Fernanda Costa, observed everything carefully. Mr. Whitmore, what exactly is your relationship with the minor? I helped her and her mother. I offered Isabel a job. A job that includes housing in your personal residence. Don't you find that convenient? Adrian felt the trap closing. There is nothing improper, Your Honor. I am not suggesting impropriety. I am questioning motivations. The judge turned to Isabel. Ma'am, how long have you known Mr. Whitmore? 1 month, Your Honor. And you already live in his house. With your daughter. Isabel went pale. Adrian realized how it sounded. He realized Rodrigo had played perfectly. He had turned kindness into suspicion. Your Honor, Isabel's voice trembled. He saved our lives. Literally. We were dying on the street when. I understand gratitude. But gratitude is not a basis for decisions regarding child custody. The judge struck the gavel. Final hearing in 2 days. Until then, I want a social worker's report after visiting both homes. You are dismissed. They left the courthouse defeated. Rodrigo walked past them with a venomous smile. 2 days, little sister. Then Clara will get to know her real family. That night, Adrian sat alone in the penthouse office. He looked at the city below, the lights blinking indifferently. He had built an empire, dominated markets, destroyed competitors. But he couldn't protect a 5-year-old child. That was when Isabel entered, bringing tea. A simple gesture she had adopted, caring for him as she cared for everything. You don't need to do this, he said. You're not obligated. I want to. She sat down. Adrian, I need to tell you something. It was the first time she had called him by his first name, without the sir. That meant something. If we lose at the hearing, Isabel continued, her voice steady despite the tears, I want you to know that these were the best days of Clara's life. She had school, food, safety. For the first time, she got to be a child. That was you. I'll never forget it. Adrian felt something break inside him. We're not going to lose. We don't know that. We're not, he repeated, more to himself than to her. Because I'm not going to give up. Ever. And it was at that moment, looking at Isabel, that Adrian understood. He wasn't doing this out of charity. Not out of guilt. He was doing it because they had become his family. The family he never had. The family he chose. On the day of the final hearing, Adrian arrived early. He was carrying something in his hands. A thick envelope. When the judge opened the session, he asked to speak. Your Honor, I have new information. He handed over the envelope. A private investigation revealed that Rodrigo Mendez does not have stable employment. He was fired 2 weeks ago for embezzlement. His gambling debts have increased. And there is more. The judge opened the envelope. Her expression changed as she read. There is also this, Adrian continued, handing over another document. A formal adoption proposal. I want to legally adopt Clara. With full consent from Isabel, who would retain all maternal rights. It would be shared adoption. The courtroom fell silent. Rodrigo exploded. This is absurd. He's known her for a month. And you, the judge said coldly, according to these documents, had not seen your niece for 5 years. Until you discovered that a billionaire was involved. She looked at Adrian. Mr. Whitmore, shared adoption is highly unusual. I know. But these are unusual circumstances. The judge turned to Clara, who was sitting quietly beside her mother. Clara, can you come here? The girl approached, frightened. Do you understand what is happening? Clara nodded. Uncle Rodrigo wants to take me. But I don't want to go. I want to stay with Mommy and Uncle Adrian. Why? Because they really love me. Uncle Adrian reads stories to me every night. Mommy sings when I have nightmares. We are family. The judge looked at Adrian, then at Isabel, finally at Rodrigo, whose face was red with anger. Decision, she announced. Permanent custody is granted to Isabel Mendez. The request for shared adoption is approved with a 6-month probationary period. Mr. Rodrigo Mendez, your request is denied, and I suggest you do not try again. Adrian felt his knees almost give way. Isabel broke down in tears. Clara ran and hugged them both. Rodrigo left, slamming the door, defeated. Outside, under the cold winter sun, the three of them stood still. An unlikely family. A chosen family. Thank you, Isabel whispered. For saving my daughter first. For saving both of us. Adrian looked at Clara, who was smiling for the first time in weeks. Thank you for letting me save you. You saved me too. And it was true. They had saved the man he was becoming. 6 months later, Adrian was in his office signing the final document. Final adoption. Clara now legally had 2 parents. Isabel and him. Beatriz walked in with champagne. Congratulations, boss. Officially a father. Adrian smiled. Something he did often now. I feel the same and completely different at the same time. That's because you are different. Beatriz poured 2 glasses. The man I met 15 years ago would never have done this. That man was empty. And now. Adrian thought of Clara laughing during breakfast. Of Isabel singing in the kitchen. Of Friday nights when the 3 of them watched movies together, Clara always falling asleep in his arms. Now I'm full. The changes didn't stay only at home. Adrian completely transformed the company's policies. He reinstated benefits for outsourced workers. Created a housing program for employees in vulnerable situations. Increased base salaries. The board reacted badly. You're destroying our profit margin, accused the chief financial officer during a tense meeting. I'm building a sustainable company, Adrian shot back. Well-treated employees perform better. It's an investment, not an expense. This is sentimentalism. No. It's humanity. Something we forgot when we started seeing people as numbers on spreadsheets. There was silence. Then, surprisingly, the chief operating officer supported him. I agree with Adrian. It's time we change. The vote was close, but it passed. Adrian knew some board members would never forgive him. But it no longer mattered. Some things were more important than unanimity. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, the 3 of them went to the park. Clara ran ahead, chasing pigeons. Isabel and Adrian walked side by side. I never asked you, Isabel suddenly said. Why did you really stop that night? Men like you don't usually stop for people like me. Adrian thought for a long time before answering. Honestly? I don't know. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe loneliness. Or maybe, he paused. Maybe some part of me recognized that I was dying too. Not from the cold. But from emptiness. And you gave me purpose. Isabel took his hand. A simple gesture. But it meant everything. You know people talk, right? She said softly. They say I'm a gold digger. That I seduced the rich boss. I know. And you know it's not true. That's enough. It's enough, she agreed, smiling. Clara came running back, out of breath. Uncle Adrian. Mommy. Look what I found. She showed a colorful feather. Beautiful, Isabel praised. I'm going to keep it forever, Clara declared with childlike seriousness. To remember this perfect day. That night, after putting Clara to bed, Adrian stood on the balcony looking at the city. Isabel brought a blanket and sat beside him. What are you thinking about? About what my life was like before you. Empty meetings. Hollow achievements. Nights alone in this huge penthouse with no one waiting for me to come home. And now. Now I have a reason to come home early. To wake up smiling. To be better. He looked at her. You saved me, Isabel. As much as I saved you. Isabel rested her head on his shoulder. I think we saved each other. They stayed there in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that only exists between people who truly understand each other. Weeks later, Clara's school organized an end-of-year presentation. Adrian canceled an international meeting to attend. He sat in the front row beside Isabel, camera ready. When Clara went up on stage, small in her blue dress, and began reciting a poem about family, Adrian felt tears. He wasn't ashamed of them. Family is not blood, Clara recited in a clear voice. Family is who stays. Who chooses you every day. Who loves you when you can't love yourself. The auditorium applauded. But Adrian knew those words were for him. For them. Afterward, in the parking lot, Clara jumped into his arms. Did you see, Daddy? I did everything right. Daddy. Not uncle. Daddy. Adrian hugged her tightly, unable to speak. Isabel wiped her own eyes. You are amazing, he finally managed to say. I learned from you, Clara replied naturally. That night, after Clara fell asleep, Adrian updated his will. Divided equally between Isabel and Clara. But he also included a charitable foundation focused on vulnerable families. A legacy that mattered. He looked at the photos on the desk. It was no longer just him in corporate portraits. It was him with Clara in his arms. Him, Isabel, and Clara at the beach. The three of them making silly faces. A life recorded not in business achievements, but in moments of love. His phone buzzed. A message from Isabel. Clara wants a story. Your turn. Adrian smiled. He stood up and went to his daughter's room. His daughter. Clara was in bed, hugging the teddy bear he had given her on the first day. Which story tonight? He asked. Ours, Clara requested. Tell again how you found us. Adrian sat on the edge of the bed and began. It was a very cold night. And a man who thought he had everything discovered that he had nothing. Clara listened with shining eyes, even though she already knew every detail. Because it wasn't about the story itself. It was about belonging. About how three strangers became family. About how love doesn't need DNA, only choice. And as he told it, Adrian realized the final truth. That frozen night, when Isabel asked, "Save my daughter first," she wasn't only saving Clara. She was saving him too. Sometimes, saving someone is the only way to save yourself. If you liked this story, subscribe to the channel and leave your like. Tell us in the comments what you thought and which city or country you're watching from. Your story matters too. And remember, family is who we choose every day. Because in the end, all of us need someone who